What if the very moment you run out of options is precisely when God's greatest miracle begins? Right now, someone watching this is standing at the edge of their last attempt, their final plan, their breaking point. You've exhausted every strategy, called every contact, prayed every prayer you know, and still, the door remains locked. But here's what most people miss. When your possibilities end, God's impossibilities awaken. In the next 60 seconds, you're going to discover why your empty hands are exactly what heaven has been waiting for. And by the end of this video, you'll understand the supernatural principle that turns human defeat into divine victory. Welcome, beautiful soul. I'm so grateful you're here today because this message isn't random. The fact that you clicked on this video at this exact moment in your journey is divine orchestration. Before we dive deeper into this life-changing truth, if you're new to the Pray to Begin channel, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We are building a community of believers who refuse to give up when circumstances say it's over. And here's what I want you to do right now. Type in the comments, "I receive," if you're ready to receive the breakthrough that only God can provide. Go ahead, pause and type, "I receive," because your declaration activates faith, and faith is the currency of miracles. Let me take you back to a man named Abraham. He was 75 years old when God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars. 25 years passed, 25 years of waiting, of watching his body grow older, of seeing Sarah's womb remain closed. He tried everything humanly possible. He even took matters into his own hands with Hagar, creating a mess that still affects nations today. But when Abraham was 100 years old, when every natural possibility had dried up like desert sand, when his body was as good as dead according to Romans 4:19, that's precisely when God showed up. Isaac, the child of promise, the impossible made possible, was born not despite Abraham's inability, but because of it. You see, God has a pattern throughout Scripture. He waits until we've exhausted our resources, our strength, our clever plans, because he wants zero confusion about who gets the glory. When you could still pull it off yourself, people might credit your intelligence, your connections, your hard work. But when you've tried absolutely everything and failed, when you're standing in the ashes of your best efforts and suddenly breakthrough comes, everyone knows that's God. Proverbs 18:12 tells us, "Before destruction the heart of man is haughty, and before honor is humility." Your empty hands are not a sign of failure. They're a sign you're finally in position for honor. Right now, let's pause and acknowledge what you've already tried. Maybe you've applied to 40 jobs and gotten 40 rejections. Perhaps you've tried every medical treatment, consulted every specialist, taken every supplement, and your body still betrays you. Maybe you've had the hard conversations, went to counseling, read the books, prayed the prayers, and your marriage still feels like it's barely breathing. Or maybe it's that business you launched with such hope, but despite your best marketing, your longest hours, your most creative strategies, you're watching it slowly die. You've tried everything, you're exhausted, you're discouraged, and you're wondering if God even sees you. Here's what I need you to understand. God has been watching every single attempt. He's counted every tear, recorded every prayer, witnessed every moment you wanted to quit but pushed forward anyway. Psalm 56:8 says, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." But he's been waiting for this exact moment. The moment when you finally realize that the breakthrough you need isn't going to come from your effort, your intelligence, or your willpower. It's going to come from him alone. Think about the Israelites trapped at the Red Sea. Behind them, the most powerful army in the world was charging forward with murder in their eyes. In front of them, an impossible body of water stretched endlessly. To the right and left, mountains blocked any escape. They had tried fleeing Egypt and succeeded, but now they were trapped. Every option exhausted, every strategy useless. And in Exodus 14:13, Moses spoke words that still echo through eternity, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." Stand firm, not run around, not panic, not devise another plan. Stand firm and watch God work. Can I tell you something that might shake your perspective? Your impossibility is not your obstacle, it's your opportunity. It's not the thing blocking your blessing, it's the very thing that will magnify your blessing. Because when God moves in impossible situations, he doesn't just solve the problem, He transforms it into a testimony that changes generations. He doesn't just open a door, he establishes a pattern of favor that follows you for the rest of your life. He doesn't just provide, he creates a supernatural supply that defies economic logic. Matthew 6:33 instructs us, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." Notice the order. Seek first his kingdom, not the solution, not the breakthrough, not even the miracle. Seek him. When you've tried everything and failed, you're finally ready to seek him instead of seeking solutions. You're finally ready to worship instead of worry. You're finally ready to trust instead of trying, and that's when everything shifts. Let me ask you something. If your situation could be resolved through human effort, would you really need God? Would you grow in faith? Would you develop the kind of unshakable trust that carries you through future storms? Would your testimony have the power to encourage someone else who's facing their own impossibility? The answer is no. Your dead end is actually a setup for a testimony that will inspire thousands. Your impossible situation is being transformed into an undeniable miracle that will point people to the reality of God. Consider the widow in 2 Kings chapter 4. Her husband had died, leaving her with crushing debt. Creditors were literally coming to take her 2 sons as slaves. She had tried everything. She'd sold everything she could. She'd asked for help. She'd exhausted every option. She came to the prophet Elisha not with confidence but with desperation. And Elisha asked her a strange question, "What do you have in your house?" She replied, "Nothing except a small jar of olive oil. Nothing except." It seemed so insignificant, so insufficient. But God specializes in multiplying the nothing except when we place it in his hands. Elisha told her to gather empty jars from her neighbors, go inside her house with her sons. Shut the door and start pouring. She did exactly as instructed, and that tiny jar of oil kept flowing and flowing and flowing until every single borrowed jar was filled. Then and only then did the oil stop. She sold the oil, paid off all her debts, and she and her sons lived on the rest. From nothing except to more than enough, from impossible debt to supernatural provision. But it only happened when she stopped trying to figure it out herself and followed God's unusual instructions. Here's where many believers miss their miracle. They pray for breakthrough, but they're not willing to follow unusual instructions. They want God to work within their understanding, their comfort zone, their logic. But Isaiah 55:8-9 clearly states, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts." When you've tried everything, you have to be willing to do something you've never done before. You have to be willing to look foolish to human wisdom. You have to be willing to obey even when it doesn't make sense. Think about Naaman the leper in 2 Kings chapter 5. He was a powerful military commander with an incurable disease. He tried everything, consulted every physician, used every treatment available in his time. Finally, he heard about the prophet Elisha and traveled to Israel for healing. But when he arrived, Elisha didn't even come out to meet him. Instead, he sent a messenger with simple instructions, "Go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River." Naaman was furious. He had great rivers in his own country. This instruction seemed insulting, beneath him, illogical, but his servants reasoned with him, and he finally humbled himself enough to obey. On the 7th dip, his flesh was restored like that of a young boy, complete healing, total restoration. But it only came when he stopped relying on his position, his understanding, his pride, and simply obeyed. If you've tried everything and nothing has worked, maybe God is waiting for you to try his way. Not a modified version of his way that fits your comfort level, not a partial obedience that protects your pride, but complete surrender to his instructions, his timing, his methods. And if you're honest, that's terrifying, because surrender means giving up control. It means admitting that your best isn't good enough. It means trusting someone you cannot see with outcomes you cannot guarantee. But here's the beautiful truth found in Proverbs 3:5-6. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." Notice it says all your heart, not part of your heart, not most of your heart, all of it. When you've tried everything, you're finally ready for this level of trust. You're finally ready to stop leaning on your own understanding because your understanding has proven insufficient. You're finally ready to submit in all your ways because your ways have led to dead ends. Let's talk about Jesus and the disciples in John chapter 6. 5,000 men, plus women and children, had followed Jesus into a remote area. It was late, they were hungry, and Jesus turned to Philip and asked, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" Philip immediately did the math. He calculated the cost, assessed the resources, and concluded it was impossible. 8 months' wages wouldn't be enough. Andrew found a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but added, "How far will they go among so many?" They had tried to figure it out with human logic and human resources, and the answer was clear: impossible. But Jesus took those 5 loaves and 2 fish, gave thanks, and started distributing them. And they kept multiplying and multiplying until all those thousands of people ate until they were satisfied, with 12 baskets of leftovers remaining. The disciples had tried to solve the problem with their thinking, their resources, their limitations. But Jesus was teaching them a fundamental principle: what's impossible with human effort becomes effortless in God's hands. Your 5 loaves and 2 fish, that little bit you have left after trying everything, when placed in Jesus' hands, becomes more than enough. Now, if you're finding value in this message, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps this video reach other people who are standing at their own impossible moment, and they need to hear that God specializes in unlocking what seems permanently closed. And make sure you're subscribed to the Pray to Begin channel, because we're releasing powerful spiritual content that will strengthen your faith and remind you that you're never alone in your battles. I want to address something that might be weighing on your heart. You might be thinking, "But I've prayed so many times, I've had faith, I've done everything God asked, why hasn't He moved yet?" This is where we have to understand divine timing. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time," not in your time, not in the time you think makes sense, in His time, and His timing is always connected to a purpose bigger than just solving your immediate problem. Think about Joseph. He was 17 when he received dreams from God showing him in a position of great authority. But then he was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, thrown into prison, forgotten by the cupbearer he helped. 13 years passed between the dream and its fulfillment. 13 years of trying to make sense of why God would give him a vision and then allow his circumstances to move in the complete opposite direction. But Genesis 50:20 reveals the hidden purpose. "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." The delay wasn't denial. The delay was preparation for a miracle so massive it would save nations. Your delay might feel like denial, but what if it's actually divine preparation? What if God is arranging circumstances, moving people into position, developing character in you, and setting up a miracle so undeniable that it will impact not just you, but everyone connected to you? What if your breakthrough is delayed because the fullness of what God wants to do requires more pieces to fall into place? What if your waiting is actually warfare in the spiritual realm, and breakthrough is closer than you think? Daniel chapter 10 gives us insight into this. Daniel prayed and fasted for 21 days, receiving no answer. But then an angel appeared and told him, "Do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Daniel's prayer was heard immediately, but there was spiritual warfare delaying the answer. He hadn't been forgotten. He hadn't been denied. There was a battle happening in realms he couldn't see, and his persistence in prayer was crucial. When you've tried everything in the natural realm and seen no results, remember there's a spiritual dimension you cannot see. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." Your breakthrough might be delayed not because God isn't working, but because there's warfare over your destiny. And your continued faith, your refusal to give up, your declarations of trust even when you see no evidence, these are spiritual weapons that are winning battles you cannot see. Here's what I need you to grasp. When you've tried everything and exhausted all human options, you're not at the end. You're at the beginning of God's supernatural intervention. You're not in a hopeless position. You're in a faith position. You're not facing defeat. You're facing the greatest testimony of your life. Isaiah 43:19 declares, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. A way in the wilderness, streams in the wasteland, breakthrough in the impossible. But there's something you must do while you're waiting for God to move. You must guard your mouth. Proverbs 18:21 says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." When you've tried everything and failed, the temptation is to speak defeat, to verbalize doubt, to declare the impossibility. But your words are creative forces. They're either building faith or feeding fear. They're either agreeing with God's promises or aligning with the enemy's lies. You cannot speak defeat and expect to walk in victory. You cannot rehearse the problem and expect to see the solution. Start declaring what God says about your situation. Stop saying, "It's impossible." Start saying, "With God all things are possible," from Matthew 19:26. Stop saying, "I've tried everything." Start saying, "God is about to do something I've never seen before." Stop saying, "Nothing is working." Start saying, "God is working everything together for my good," based on Romans 8:28. Your words are the bridge between your current reality and your promised breakthrough. Speak life. Speak faith. Speak God's word over your impossibility. And while you're guarding your mouth, you must also stay in worship. When Paul and Silas were beaten, chained, and thrown into prison in Acts chapter 16, they had tried everything to serve God faithfully, and it landed them in the worst possible situation. But at midnight, in the darkest hour, they didn't complain. They didn't plot escape. They didn't curse their circumstances. They worshipped. They sang hymns to God. And suddenly an earthquake shook the prison, chains fell off, doors flew open, and not only were they freed, but the jailer and his entire household got saved. Worship in your wilderness, praise in your prison, sing in your storm, because worship is warfare and it releases supernatural breakthrough. Let me bring this home with one final truth. When you've tried everything, God is not asking you to try harder. He's asking you to trust deeper. He's not impressed with your effort. He's moved by your faith. Hebrews 11:6 says, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." Your impossibility is his opportunity to prove that he rewards those who refuse to quit seeking him, even when every human indicator says it's over. So here's what I want you to do right now. Close your eyes for a moment if you're in a safe place to do so. Take a deep breath, and I want you to release every plan that didn't work. Release every door that stayed closed. Release every person who said no. Release every timeline that passed. Release every disappointment, every frustration, every moment you felt forgotten. Just release it all to God. Now with empty hands lifted to heaven, receive his promise found in Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." He has plans, better plans than yours, plans that will prosper you, plans filled with hope. Your impossibility is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your greatest testimony. When you look back a year from now, 5 years from now, you'll see that this moment, this place where you exhausted all your options, was the exact place where God's glory showed up and unlocked what you thought was permanently closed. Your Red Sea is about to part. Your oil is about to multiply. Your prison doors are about to fly open. Your impossibility is about to become your miracle. Now type in the comments, "blessed and ready," if you're ready to trust God with your impossible situation. Declare it by faith. And if this message spoke to your spirit, please share this video with someone who needs to hear that when they've tried everything, it's time to trust God to unlock the impossible. Send it to that friend who's about to give up. Share it with that family member who's exhausted. Post it where people who need hope can find it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pray to Begin channel, because we're committed to bringing you messages that strengthen your faith, encourage your heart, and remind you that God is still in the miracle-working business. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a divine message that might be exactly what you need for your next season. Come back for more videos like this, because your faith journey needs constant encouragement, and we're here to walk with you through every season. Remember this one truth as you go forward: your empty hands are the perfect position for receiving God's overflow. When you've tried everything, heaven is about to try something. Trust him, watch him, expect him. He's about to unlock the impossible in your life. I'm praying for your breakthrough. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.